everybody. This is Damien from Legend Life with our Bucket List Talks. We look to share tips, advice, and inspiration to help you have and create your bucket list experiences. We do this by interviewing travel experts, travelers, and founders of travel companies who will give us their insights, ideas, and advice so you can go off and create your own bucket list experiences. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Cliff and Rachael Wilson, who have come back to give us more of a land-based view of what to experience when traveling in Belize. As you may remember, they previously gave us a rundown on what it was like to go on a sailing vacation in Belize through their company, Belize Sailing Vacations, and today we're going to talk a little bit more about their sister company, Absolute Belize, which offers bespoke, luxury, tailor-made vacations in Belize. So welcome back, guys, and thanks for coming back again.
Great to see you, Damien.
Great to see you guys. So to get started, maybe you can give us a little bit of a background about Belize for anyone who may not be familiar with Belize, some of its history and its geography.
Okay, so Belize is the only English-speaking country in Central America. It borders Guatemala and Mexico, and it has fantastic mainland activities, and but also the coast with all of the islands. So it makes for a really fantastic surf and turf experience. It was formerly British Honduras, and it gained independence in 1981. So there's, it's part of the Commonwealth. So in terms of activities, land to sea, inland, the list is really endless, but you have Mayan temples, the largest cave network in Central America, rivers, you have the pine forests as well as the rainforests. So between horseback riding, canoeing down rivers, mountain biking, hiking, and then the cultural element of it as well. There's indigenous Mayan villages, and so many different cultures going on that you can just have the most incredible inland experience. But then when you add on what's at the ocean, you have over 200 islands, the second largest barrier reef in the world, and 40% of the ocean's protected in the way of marine reserves. So there's just so much of an abundance of things to do in a very small geographical radius.
So what do you think are some of the main destinations, experiences to kind of like have, things that you would include on an itinerary for anyone who's looking for something a little bit tailor-made with regard to Belize?
So one of our classic itineraries, and our most popular itinerary, is called Green and Blue. So it's the surf and turf, but we instead call it Green and Blue. And you would do probably, if you had a week, you'd do 3 days inland, and we'd incorporate a Mayan temple, possibly combined with an afternoon cave experience. We could do a cultural experience with indigenous Mayan, villages, and then something more adrenaline based. But it really depends on the individual. We have itineraries that are much more adrenaline based, some that are more cultural, some that are more family orientated. So, but the classic one will be something adventurous, something cultural, something in nature, for 3 days inland. And then we get you out to the Barrier Reef. In the northern keys, you have Ambergris Key, Key Corker. Now these islands, the Barrier Reef is just a quarter of a mile away. So, it's right there on your doorstep to kayak out, to snorkel, or go on one of the local excursions. Or you can opt to be in the south, in somewhere like Placencia, which is a grown-up sort of fishing village, and you can do excursions from there. So we get you out on the water. But typically that's the 3 days inland, 4 days at the ocean. We'll leave like 1 or 2 days at leisure because a lot of the places have kayaks and bikes and maybe Hobie cats, and people want to kind of explore at their own pace, maybe even relax and read a book, which we always recommend, little hammock time. But that's the classic one. We also have ones that are 3 different spots. So we actually love to incorporate the sailing, which we talked about last time. So do inland, then do sailing, and then back to the beach. And I'm trying to think of the other. We have all sorts of quirky itineraries as well, like lobster lovers, cacao crazy, adrenaline addicts, dive down.
Yeah, it's a really chance to get to accommodate the different types of groups, whether you got the adrenaline junkies, the families, whether it's the active families or the romantic couple want to get away, kind of blend all that stuff together. So you can kind of fine tune it to individual groups' needs to make sure they're having the ultimate experience they can.
Okay, so maybe now let's focus on the kind of like different segments. So if you're an adventure speaker, you mentioned cave systems. So what other kind of adventure activities are available in Belize?
So the ATM caves is an archaeological natural wonder, and it's a whole cave network where you clamber through the caves, and there's skeletons that are sacrificial victim.
It's pretty much like Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you're able to actually go see an archaeological site like that, where you're hiking through the jungle, you cross a couple of rivers, not too high, but you're in the middle of the jungle, and they're giving you a nature trail and telling you can eat this, don't eat that, you can do all kinds of stuff, and you get to a cave entrance, put the spelunking helmet on, and then you jump in the water, and you're wading, swimming, walking underground in this underground cave network for an hour, go out of the river and crawl through this hole, and then you're in a Mayan ritual sacrifice site where there's actual human remains everywhere, and pottery, and it's just a mind-blowing experience that we just, now you have to walk around that, don't step on this, and it's the whole time you're just going, wow, oh my gosh, wow. And that ATM is like that's one of the top ones, but there's a lot of cool things to do like that too, where you're like, this is very cool, this is very awesome to see and explore.
Yeah, no, definitely. So any other kind of must do kind of adventure activities?
I mean, on the Keys, there's the shark ray alley, which is super shallow, and you jump in the water, and all these sharks just come and surround you, and that's the place where the fishermen used to clean their catch, and so it's always attracted them and the turtles and everything, and so that's just a classic experience.
They're nurse sharks. They're not like beach sharks, but they're sharks, and it's really cool to go swim with them and experience.
Yeah, no, awesome. So as you were mentioning last time, Belize has been very good at conserving large areas. So it's kind of like a nature lover's kind of paradise. So what are some of the top destinations, things to see from a more kind of like nature kind of basic perspective?
Down south in the Toledo area, there's actually a company called Tide, and they're doing sort of conservation tourism. So, you can actually go and help do some reforestation projects down there, and then, in the morning, and then go off and snorkel and have a beach barbecue and things in the afternoon. So kind of like the people feel like they're really giving back as well as having a nice experience at the same time. Out at Caribou Key, the Smithsonian Institute, they're doing like a reef preservation project where they're actually like rebuilding coral, or they're planting coral, and up in Key Corker, they're doing a mangrove restoration project. There's projects going on all over the country, and there isn't one sort of big collective that that there's a lot happening all over, but I think I said last time, we're working on doing an itinerary that is like joining the dots of all the reserves. So your travel itinerary will be to go and experience everything that's going on in all of these reserves.
Yeah, I mean, you go to, some of the hotels you go to in the jungle side, then there's howler monkeys outside your hotel, right outside your room right there. So I mean, you're get a chance to really experience the nature side of stuff and be out in the jungle. But from the north to the south and inland stuff, I mean, there's so much to go explore and see everywhere you go, between Mayan Rubens or cave tubing or different river activities, or just hiking to the jungle and doing nature trails, or doing cultural stuff and going to cacao farms and learning about the chocolate and all kinds of different fun stuff like that.
Okay, so I also believe they have the only Jaguar Preserve in the world. So that must be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I had a chance to work there many years back as a consultant, and got a chance to go explore that area and spent a couple of great days up there. And it's the world's largest Jaguar Preserve in that area, but it's they're not popping out of the trees everywhere, but they're all around, stuff like that. But you can go for a short hike from the camp, like a half-hour away, and then there's this big, huge pool with a waterfall going in that you can go jump in and explore. So, just walking through the jungle itself is really great. And there's also the Pine Ridge Forest, which is up in the Cayo district, where it's a very distinct habitat where you're all of a sudden you're going through a thick jungle, and you pop up into this island habitat of pine trees and low manzanita scrub, which is a completely different experience than the rainforest. And then there's rivers going through and great places to stay that are right next to the river. You can hang out by the river, swim around, order room service, go explore, and go all kinds of stuff right there. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, there's caves up there as well, and so many natural pools. The Rio on Pools is just beautiful, and that's all in the reserve, in the Mountain Pine Ridge Reserve.
Okay, so for those people who are kind of more into kind of like the natural heritage sites, ancient sites, like history, because apparently Belize is the center of the Mayan Empire, so there's a lot to see there. So what would be some of the top things to see with that regard?
The largest in Belize is Caracol, and they say that it's bigger than Tikal, but it just hasn't been excavated anywhere near to that extent. And there's and that's a great day actually to combine with visiting the Mountain Pine Ridge Reserve and also seeing the Rio on Pools. It's a long way out there, but one of the most significant structures in the Mayan Empire. We also have Shenantonich, which is a much easier to access site. You can sort of drive over there and walk up and things. But there's places dotted around. There's a lot down south, like Lubantum, and I forget the name of the other one.
You can spend a whole trip just exploring Mayan ruins.
They've got these Mayan names that I can't pronounce, but they're ones that were experiences down in the south where you can actually go with the guide and go to these sites, and then they take machetes and like hike through a bit more of the jungle, and then you discover more that hasn't been discovered. I mean, they're so unexcavated. So, but they think that there's so much more in the country that hasn't been discovered yet, which is really cool.
No, it sounds like an amazing experience. So you also mentioned a little bit about some of the cultural aspects. So you can learn a little bit about Mayan culture, but also about the food. So maybe you can give us a little bit of a background on what you can experience from more of a cultural kind of perspective.
Yes, so down south, some of the villages, the kind of indigenous Mayan villages where they're living the sort of sustenance living. So you could do like a horseback ride to the cacao farms and then learn about their farming techniques, and then go and grind the cacao and learn to make that. But you also experience the village and learn about their ways of life and their barter system that they've had for all these years. Somebody has the cow and somebody has the honey and somebody and they all trade. So that's a really fascinating experience, and you can learn to cook some of the dishes. There's up in the Cayo district, there's the San Antonio Village women's group, and you can go and do tortilla making and then have a very traditional lunch, and then you can do pottery making. And some of the resorts now are doing traditional cooking experiences. So like the Lodge at Char Creek is doing an outdoor Mayan cookery class that you then get to enjoy. Up north on Ambergris Key, there's Belize Food Tours that's taking people around all the old like back of town mum and dad little shops, and the kind of real local snack foods to the more traditional places. And so you can do that little food hop and try 6 different places. So there's things that we can find and that we know about that are going on around the country based on your interests, whether it's more the history or more the kind of the melting pot of what's going on now.
Yeah, and there is a huge melting pot in Belize. It's one of the great things about it. You have Mennonites, you have Garifuna, you have Mayans, you have Spanish, you got all kinds of different people there just really get along together. So you have all the different, foods from all different places, but, and be able to experience different things in different towns, kind of have their own thing going on, but also to be able to go out on one of the beach locations and go out snorkeling for the day and catch some fresh fish and lobster and do a beach barbecue is a really fun way to go as well. So.
Oh, awesome. So it sounds like a fascinating place. So I guess in summation, what would you say is the reason why anyone should consider traveling to Belize?
The geographical radius is so small, but what you can do is so diverse and abundant, combined with all the culture and the wilderness and the wildlife and the history and the warm and welcoming people. I mean, the people are just so fantastic that you can do so much in such a small place, and the diversity is incredible. And that's
No, sounds brilliant. So what about places to stay? So what are your recommendations as far as boutique, something a little bit special, maybe eco-friendly?
So Francis Ford Coppola has 3 resorts. Well, he has 2 resorts in Belize and a private island, and he also has another resort over the border in Guatemala. But they're truly magical places. So Blancano Lodge is up in the Mountain Pine Ridge, and that's set over the waterfalls. And the sister place, Turtle Inn, is on the beach in Placencia, and it's kind of Balinese style cabanas and villas on the beach. And it's one of the leading eco resorts in probably sort of Central America and the Caribbean. And they also now have a private island called Coral Key, where you have that just to yourself. And then there's just the caretaker who also they're the kind of the hosts. So that's a really really special experience, particularly with the eco angle. Eco-wise, also the lodge at Char Creek, that's been around, owned by the Fleming family for a long time. They moved out there, and just bought the little old farm and developed it, and then built some casitas when the friends came to stay, and then now they're one of the leading eco resorts in Central America, and they have everything on site, from horseback riding to the organic farm, canoeing down the river, the butterfly farm, natural history center. And you can actually ride horses up to a Mayan, what would you call it? They're like a escarpment, or
a lookout.
Like a lookout, but it's on a Mayan site, so you can ride horses up to the top and then see all across the valley. That's another very special place.
I mean, there's so many different options between rustic to quite high end. I think that's one of the great things about there's so much going on there, and so much between the land and the sea and accommodations. What do we do? I think it's one of the great things about what Absolute Belize does is that hey, let's get to know you guys. What are you into? What kind of a trip do you want to have? And just being able to personalize that and say, okay, here's some good options. Because the whole idea of trying to plan this trip yourself is you definitely do it, but to have that inside knowledge and just be all like, oh, you make my life so much easier. Thank you so much, and give me all the best of the best.
Yeah.
No, awesome.
And on the islands, just lastly, I mean, I could go on about all the different places, but Matachica on the northern shores of Ambergris Key is, stone's throw from the reef, and it's, just fits in so beautifully with the, with the island and the aesthetics. Colorful cabanas in the sands with thatched roofs, and very kind of bohemian but rustic, but with all the luxury touches as well. So you can sort of feel pampered, but in appropriate setting, for Belize. And so that's a really magical place to stay as well.
No, awesome. Well, Belize certainly sounds like a magical place. Definitely should be on everyone's bucket list to go visit at least once. So, well, thanks again, guys. It's been brilliant speaking to you today. So I'm sure a lot of people have got a lot of value out of this, and they'll probably be looking to find out where your website is so they can book their next trip to Belize. So how about we help them out, and you can tell people how they can find you online.
Yeah, they can find us at absolutebelize.com, and everything's there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Cliff and Rachel. It's been brilliant speaking to you. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for your
Thank
time,
you
Danny.
too,
Look forward to your
Damien.
next live show in Belize. So we appreciate it.